Anyone who has ever dreamed of flying knows that before you can sit at the controls of a real plane, you have to spend hours in a simulator. It is there, in a safe environment, that any mistake can be made, without any consequences. And you know what? In the world of digital finance, where these consequences can be very real, fortunately we also have such simulators. And today we have a set of notes from such a project on the table. This is basically a testing ground for future DeFi pilots. And what's most fascinating about it, I think, is that it's not just some dry, technical analysis. Right. This is actually a case study. A story about how important the entire infrastructure and user experience is. So are we looking at one key decision? How to find the perfect playground for learning. Such, where you can trip but you can't hurt yourself. Okay, so let's unpack this. Before they found this, as you said, perfect playground in Sepolia, where did they start? Sources indicate that the beginnings were in a completely different corner of the digital world. Correct. Originally, this entire ecosystem called PEPON was built on the Binance Smart Chain testnet, on BSC testnet. Okay, and the goal was crystal clear from the very beginning, and it kept scrolling. And this appears in these materials all the time. Education, education and more education. There's this one sentence in there that sums it up perfectly. Yes, this is brilliant in its simplicity. They say it straight. This token is worth nothing. But its educational value is powerful. The idea was to give people a tool so they can do it themselves? Try it yourself. Learn the operation, the wallet, understand how transactions work and, touch the basics of DeFi. So it wasn't just reading theory. From what I see, the user was immediately thrown into, let's say, the deep end. He had to raise funds himself. Exactly. No hand-holding. The mechanics immediately forced active action. What was that first step? The first step was to obtain free test TBNB tokens. Of course. They were used to pay for gas, i.e. transaction fees. It is crucial to teach this habit right away. Even if it's virtual money. Exactly. And these tokens had to be obtained from so-called faucets, i.e. VCTs, special sites that just give them away. And this is often the first wall that a beginner hits. All your enthusiasm for learning can disappear if you can't get that free starting money. And here we come to the point, because once someone had these TBNBs, they could immerse themselves in the ecosystem. So what could he do? He could create, or mint, PEPON tokens, then stack them, i.e. block them, to receive PAPAJ tokens as a reward. And finally, probably trade them. Yes, on a simple, decentralized exchange, full asset lifecycle. I found a great analogy in my notes that sums it up. They compare it to playing Monopoly. This is a perfect comparison. We give you money that looks and works like the real thing, but has value only in this way, within this one specific board. You can buy, sell, invest and go bankrupt. And when you finish the game, you simply fold the board and lose nothing. This allows you to learn all the rules that govern the real market without stress. This monopoly analogy is great, but even there you need to get some cash from the banker to start. I guess this banker was the problem that pushed the creators towards Sepolia. You've hit the jackpot. This is the key twist in this story. So the system on Binance worked, but it had one fundamental flaw that the developers finally identified. This banker, i.e. the free TBNB Faucets, was sometimes unreliable. He was difficult to handle. And the switch to Sepolia Testnet, the main Ethereum test network, was dictated by one very pragmatic goal. Sources say it straight. Sepolia offers easier and more reliable access To the taps. This sounds like a classic UX problem, right? You can have the best technology, but if this first step is frustrating, the whole project fails. Exactly. It wasn't a purely technical decision. She was user-centric. And this is a lesson that goes far beyond this one project. Definitely. Choosing Sepolia was simply a choice for a lower barrier to entry. The materials even mention specific, reliable taps. Alchemy, QuickNode, POW, Faucet. This shows that there is something more behind it. Yes, behind this network is a more powerful, more mature development infrastructure. These companies make money by making it easy for developers. So they take care of basics such as working faucets. This is no longer a hobby project. No, these are professional tools. Wait, because there is one more detail in the notes that seems revolutionary to me. From a beginner's perspective, this is a button for automatic configuration of the Sepolia network in the MetaMask wallet. Yes, and that's the icing on the cake. This is a mastery of user thinking. I remember how much time I used to spend trying to find the correct chain ID for an RPC address. And the currency symbol to manually add a new network. Exactly. And here it comes down to one click. A whole process that could take someone half an hour. And end up in frustration. Now it lasts a second. This shows a change in philosophy. It works and is pleasant to use. That's exactly the point. Okay, so we already have this new dreaming sandbox on Sepolia. The entrance to which is very simple. So what does this promised step-by-step educational path look like? How do we take a novice from zero to, say, DeFi hero? The roadmap is very intuitive. Step 1, after getting your test ETH from one of these reliable faucets, is to create your first tokens. So it's minting. Yes, the user goes to the project website and mints PEPON tokens. This is his first ever interaction with a smart contract. This is the magical moment. He doesn't buy something that already exists. At the same time, he learns how to confirm transactions in the wallet, how the gas fee works, and where to look for your new tokens. This is that aha moment when theory turns into practice. I have my first handmade tokens. Okay, what's next? The term ETH wrapping often appears in the materials. Sounds technical? It sounds, but calmly. There is a clear analogy for this too. Yes, of course, and it's as good as the one from Monopoly. ETH wrapping, that's what it is in practice. ETH wrapping into WETH, i.e. wrapped ETH. As compared to exchanging cash for tokens at an amusement park. I love it. This is great, it demystifies it perfectly. So it's not some new, strange currency, just the same money. But in a form that machines accept. They just don't have a cash drawer. They need a standard. Yes, they only accept standardized tokens in the ERC20 format. Wrapping is a process in which your ETH is locked in a contract. And in return you get a perfect one-to-one equivalent in the form of the WETH token. A technical necessity to be able to enter the carousel. Beautifully said. And the main carousel in this amusement park is, as I understand it, the decentralized stock exchange. Yes, and this is step 3. Exchange, or swap. In this case, we are dealing with the implementation of Uniswap v2, an absolute DeFi classic. So what's going on? Once the user has his WETH tokens, he can exchange them for the second token in the ecosystem, i.e. PAPAJ. And this is a very valuable lesson. Extremely. Because it shows in practice how liquidity pools and automatic market makers work. The user is not trading with another person, but with a pool of assets managed by an algorithm. And he experiences it on an interface that is basically identical to the one on which billions of Dollars are traded in the real world. Exactly. Okay, so we learned how to create assets, prepare them for trading, and finally trade them. This is the active side. What about the more passive one? The materials devote a lot of space to staking. This is the fourth key piece of this puzzle. Because why get papaya tokens at all? They can be obtained either through trading or staking. That is, token blocking. Yes. You lock your PEPON tokens for a specified period of time, and the contract automatically generates rewards for you in the form of papaya tokens every second. What's the analogy for this? She's great too. Either a term deposit in a bank or, what is even more picturesque, planting plants in a virtual garden. Oh, I like planting plants. You put the seeds into the ground, i.e. block PEPON, and simply wait for the harvest. Exactly. And interestingly, the project offers various patches, i.e. staking plans. There is a quick test plan for 1 hour, where for 100 PEPON you get 1 papaya. Okay. There is a daily plan for 24 hours that already gives you 10 papaya for the same 100 PEPON. And finally, a weekend plan for 3 days with a prize of 50 papayas. It teaches a fundamental principle of finance in a very simple way. Yes. The more you freeze your capital, the greater the reward you expect for this risk. And the fact that you can have several such stakes at the same time allows you to experiment with different strategies. So, if we look at it from a bird's eye view, what does all of this mean? We have a complete, friendly ecosystem at Sepolia. What is the overarching lesson from all this analysis? I think the most important takeaway is that the real value in this project is in getting what's in this project, and not in tokens. This is repeated like a mantra. Yes, these tokens are financially worthless. But being able to practice minting, wrapping, trading and staking without stress builds what you might call muscle memory. That is, habits. Exactly. When you later operate on real resources, your hands know what to do, where to click, what to pay attention to. But is this sandbox not true for them? No. But is it so? Doesn't this sandbox give you a bit of a false sense of security? We learn to click, but we don't learn the real paralyzing fear of losing money? This is a great question. And the eternal debate. Of course, the simulator won't recreate your adrenaline rush. But its goal is not to replicate fear, but to automate procedures. I see. Once you've practiced checking addresses, setting the gas, and confirming transactions hundreds of times, then in a stressful situation when real money is involved, there is less chance that you will make a mistake due to panic. You automate correct habits. This is the priceless value. That makes sense. The second conclusion that comes to my mind concerns this decision to migrate. This is a story about how location is of paramount importance in the digital world. Exactly. The choice of Sepolia was not a coincidence. This shows how critical to the success of a project, especially an educational one, has all the infrastructure surrounding it. Easy access to resources and tools for working taps. All this fundamentally lowers the entry barrier and determines, will anyone even try, or will they hit the wall at the very beginning? And finally, in the end, this whole project is just a perfect, living illustration of the concept of testnets and mainnets. This is a testing ground that teaches not only users but also creators themselves how to build better products. Exactly. Before they hit the market and start operating on real values. To sum up, we have traced the evolution of this project. From a good idea on, let's say, a slightly troublesome platform, to a truly refined educational machine at Sepolia. It's a fascinating story. How in technology, attention to user experience is equally important. Maybe even more important than functionality itself. Definitely. And you know what? This brings me to one last, perhaps slightly provocative, thought. I'm listening? There is such a humorous mention in the materials we analyzed about a distant, humorous vision of a powerful crypto exchange in Willadawa. Yes, I remember. Of course, this is the blink of an eye. But it forces you to reflect. How many real, global projects that we use today? Did it start as a simple, maybe even funny experiment in such a simulator? Good question. And which of these concepts that users play with in this sandbox? Whether it's staking, wrapping, or maybe an AMM mechanism, will soon turn out to be the foundation for the next great innovation that will change the world of finance or technology.